Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed. You have joined us for this special episode as no football is taking place this weekend. So we thought we'd take the time to have a little chat about the managerial appointment that we may be seeing in the next few days. There have been a number of names banded about in the press by the bookies, and we're just going to have a little chat about who we think would be the perfect fit to replace Graham Potter. But before we dive into that, let's see who we've got on the show today. We welcome Joe. Joe, my friend, how are you doing?
Yes, not bad, not bad. It's been a pretty rough week. I hope everyone else out there is okay, doing all right. But yeah, no, I'm all right, Tom. How are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. I didn't feel up to coming on. What day was it? Thursday. Didn't really feel up to it, and I'll explain why, I suppose, in a little bit. But before I jump into my rant or whatever you want to call it, let's speak to Dan. Dan, how are you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm not too bad after such a tough week for us, all of us Brighton fans, and everybody in general. If you want to celebrate the Queen's life and whatever, it's just been hard, really. But I'm okay today.
Go on then, Tom. Let's talk. Let's talk to you first of all. Let's get things out the way. You've had a few days to gather your feelings and gather your thoughts. We had a massive rant about it on a live stream, which we're so thankful to everyone joining in and dropping your comments as well. So let's talk to you then, Tom. What are your feelings now? Now the dust has settled a little bit.
My initial thing is, I just want to preface this by saying, like, for me, it came really out of the blue, really quickly, because I've been at work and I hadn't looked at my phone for about 7 hours. I just got everything in one sort of like wham, and I got that over 2 days, because I just saw on, I think, the Wednesday, a message saying about Chelsea, and I was like, what? Where the hell has this come from? And then obviously on the Thursday, it happened. So like my initial feelings were anger, really angry, but that, again, I think that's because I didn't have time to process it properly. A few days later now, I'm still quite cross about taking the whole of the backroom staff, leaving us with nothing. 6 games into the season, if this had happened at the end of the season, it'd be a different scenario. I'd be disappointed. I am disappointed, but I think we all knew that it was really only a matter of time before Graham Potter, left Brighton to, seek pastures new, as it were. But to go 6 games into the season when we're sitting in 4th, to take all of his backroom stuff, which you'd expect, Potter, Bjorn, and the other chap whose name escapes me, but he took Bruno and Ben Roberts, and they were here before he came in. And to see Bruno go, a club legend, he's got a mural in the city. He's had 2 after the first one was destroyed. And it just made me sort of go, well, so much for once a seagull, always a seagull.
I was going to say, we spoke the other day, Tom, about legendary status at the football club, and I and many other people threw Bruno's name into the ring. Where do you think that stands now? Do you think the dust has to settle a little bit more, or do you think fans will ever think good of him again?
It's really difficult, because if you look at players that we consider to be legends, especially in more recent history, you talk about the likes of Glenn Murray, Adam Virgo. Both of those players left Brighton. Both those players admittedly returned to Brighton. But Peter Ward moved on. Bobby Zamora moved on. It is part and parcel of this game, and it hurts like hell. But it's just there's been, as far as my knowledge, there's been no comments from Bruno. There's been no sort of explanation as to why he felt he needed to move on. I know that some people have said about, oh, maybe it's job security. But I'm sure that, considering the loyalty that Bruno had previously shown, Tony Bloom would have made it almost a non-negotiable for whoever came in, that Bruno and Ben Roberts would have had to be part of your backroom staff, because they're part of the culture of the club. They're part of the heart and soul of this club. And to see them go, no sort of message to the fans that I'm aware of. that's been shared over their social media accounts or via the club website, it just hurts. It just feels like a betrayal a bit almost. And I know that some people are hopeful in the fact that maybe it's part of Tony Bloom's plan. Tony Bloom has almost sent him with Graham Potter so that in the view of maybe in 5 years' time, Bruno would come back and be our head coach. I think that's wishful thinking. For me, it's almost like, he's burnt that bridge with the fans. And I don't think the fans will ever be able to look at him the same way again. That's my perspective on it at any rate.
Yeah. Let's talk messages to the fans then, Tom, because both myself and you haven't actually. We're 4 o'clock on Sunday. The statement from Graham Potter was released this morning, I believe. Both me and yourself haven't read it yet, and I believe you're going to read it now. And let's get our thoughts on that. Yeah,
I will do. So I'm going to open my tab up now, and I'm just going to read it off the club website. So this has been 3 wonderful years with a club that has changed my life, and I want to take a moment to say goodbye to all of you who have made it such a special period of my career. I bid farewell to a great club and one that will always mean so much to me and my family. For some, I recognise that the change that comes so suddenly in football can be hard to accept. I may not be able to persuade you all to forgive my departure, but I would at least like to take the chance to say thank you. All good clubs need great owners and great fans. Brighton and Hove Albion have both. I will cherish the relationship I built in all aspects of the club. My players went above and beyond. My staff gave everything. At the heart of it were the Albion fans. On every match day at the Amex, the connection with the team was so strong. When we played away, you came in your thousands to roar us on. I know what you have been through to see your club finally in the modern stadium and thriving in the Premier League. I felt it every time I stood on the touchline. To those of you who stopped to chat when I was in the city or further afield, and the many who wrote to me, all those connections meant a great deal. Your personal stories of following the club, of parents and grandparents who were fans, helped me to understand what makes Albion special. I hope that you will understand that at this stage of my career, I felt I had to grasp a new opportunity. I would like to thank Tony Bloom, Paul Barber, and the directors for the opportunity they gave me 3 years ago, and then the unswerving support that came with it. My gratitude also to Dan Ashworth and David Weir, 2 first-class technical directors. To the staff at both the stadium and the training ground, all of you have impressed me with the pride that you have taken in your work. You supported the club, and you have also supported me through some tough times in my personal life. Brighton and Hove Albion is a club full of good people who work together in the right way to accomplish things. We have shared some brilliant moments. The 3-0 win over Tottenham Hotspur in my first season stands out. So too the 2-1 win over Arsenal after lockdown. It was an amazing afternoon, especially given what many had gone through in the preceding months. My only wish was that our supporters had been there to enjoy that with us. When the stadiums were partially opened, we experienced an incredible atmosphere for the 3-2 win over Manchester City in the final home game of the 2020-2021 season. I know many of you enjoyed the 4-0 win over Manchester United last season. We finished that season with a 3-1 win over West Ham on the final day to seal a record points tally for the club and the highest ever league position. These are great memories. The Albion have given me that and more. I feel I'm a better person and a better manager for the experiences I've had here. Not every team selection or decision has been perfect, but the club has created an environment that gives you the scope to make mistakes, learn from them, and then improve. I have always tried to act with integrity and to be a good person. These are values I hold dear, and I know that the Albion do too. What turned out to be my final match against Leicester City on Sunday was a good way to end. I did not know at the time that it would be the end, but looking back now, we played so well. There was so much positivity around the club. The last few days have been an unexpected whirlwind. Leaving the training ground for the last time was a poignant moment, not only for me, but also for Billy, Bjorn, Kyle, Bruno, and Ben. Albion fans know that with Tony, Paul, and David at the club, they're in safe hands. To my successor, whoever that may be, I may say congratulations. You'll be working for a great club with a fantastic squad, supported by a great chairman and board. The squad are playing at a high level and will get better. Most of all, the supporters will get behind the team home and away. To everyone at Brighton and Hove Albion, thank you. It has been a pleasure and an honour to serve the club over the last 3 years. I wish you every success going forward. Graham. It just, I mean, I don't, that's the first time I've read that. It just still seems a bit empty. You know, I mean, I get that he might say, it's at this point in my career.
There comes a point, you say, it was the time for me to grasp a new opportunity. Why? You've got the club that you've been working so hard at into 4th position in the Premier League, albeit after 6 games. I absolutely get that. But something to build on, to go down as one of the greatest managers in Brighton and Hove Albion history, which I'm sure once the dust has settled, we will look back on him and say, yes, he was absolutely fantastic. I'm not going to take anything away from what he's done for our football club, because some of the games, some of the memories that I have from Graham Potter at our football club are second to none. And it's just been absolute dreamland. Like I said, on the radio after the 5-2 win against, or before the 5-2 win against Leicester. I don't know.
It's just
why leave that 6 games into a season?
Exactly.
Why grasp that opportunity now? You can finish a season gaining Brighton and Hove Albion European football. Brighton, can I just say it? Brighton and Hove Albion with a chance to get European football, and you leave it.
Yeah, there's something that doesn't sit right with me there too, Joe. I think it's all the timing. It's the timing. As you say, Joe, you could go from being a legend at Brighton to a footnote at Chelsea. I don't think. Yeah, money, perhaps. I did want to talk to this anyway because it annoys me, some of the stuff you hear from fans. Because let's be honest, Graham Potter will receive a big pay rise, and a lot of the sort of rhetoric around that is, oh, but if you were doing it, wouldn't you want more money? And the thing that annoys me regarding to this is this sort of insinuation that Graham Potter was on peanuts. The man was being paid £2 million a year. £2 million. He was 3 years into a contract, so that's £6 million. He had 4 more years left to go. That's £8 million. So altogether, that's £14 million that he would have accrued over his time with us. That is more than enough to sort you out for life, as long as you're good with money. And this sort of rhetoric that the average person, and comparing it to the average person, the average salary in the UK, as someone tweeted me on Twitter, is about £25,000. £2 million, 25,000, they're not comparable. They're just not. Offering me someone, offering someone who's earning £25,000 a year more money, of course they're going to take it. Because for them, that's the difference between living a comfortable life and a not so comfortable life, especially in the middle of a cost of living crisis where gas and electricity prices are shooting up the rocket. Graham Potter wouldn't have had to worry about that. It's not comparable to ask everyday average people who are living month to month if they would take a pay rise or not. Because every average person, 9 times out of 10, unless they're in a job that they really love, would say, yeah, of course, because that's the difference. Graham Potter, I think, again, this is what someone said to me on Twitter, is earning at Chelsea, will earn 6.5 times more than he did at Brighton. So the average person earning £25,000 a year, they would earn £168,000. That's life-changing money to someone on 25k. Absolutely life-changing. That's the difference between, for instance, in my situation, my wife wouldn't have to go to work. We wouldn't have to worry about childcare. We'd go on holidays. We could have nice car, we could live in a bigger house. That's what it means to people who are on average salaries. To Graham Potter, who's already a multi-millionaire, what's he going to do? Buy more cars? Buy a bigger mansion?
We also talk about the insult that it has on the people that are on the benefit system as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, these people get paid like almost £500 a month, and they have to make do on that. They've got rent, they've got electricity, they've got gas, they've got food shopping, they've also maybe got children that they have to support. And the child benefit system is, by the way, like this. I'm sorry for this to get, I don't know, political or whatever you want to call it. Child benefit gives you £20 a week. £20 a week to feed your child. And people have the nerve to. I know I said it on the live stream, by the way. I just want to say that. But I was playing devil's advocate because I had seen it a lot on social media. So I wanted to ask a question and bring it to the forefront. It's just, yeah, you don't make that comparison when you're talking about £60 million over a 5-year contract for a football manager in the Premier League. No, not for me.
It's just, it's a lazy comparison. It's lazy. It lacks critical thought, and it shouldn't be part of the conversation. I want to preface this, or I say preface because I've already said this stuff, but I'm not angry with Graham Potter moving for more money if that's what he wants. But I think it's just this idea that he was getting paid minimum wage at Brighton or something, and he's gone to, like, man was already living in the lap of luxury on £2 million a year. Most other people would, and also, again, I did the maths. If you were on 25k a year and you got that 6.5 times salary boost to £168,000, it would still take you 12 years to earn what Graham Potter did at Brighton in a calendar year. 12. Over a decade. I think some people forget how much money £2 million is. I don't know if it's because of things like Euro Millions being like ridiculous these days, or football transfers getting crazy, but 2 million is a huge, huge number. I don't think people sort of compute it.
It's football transfers, and I have to say that I when I was in my younger years, I was victim to not really knowing how much value money had, because I was playing FIFA nine times out of 10 every single day, and yeah, like I was putting in offers for £100 million, and I could just splash this money left, right, and centre. And like, when it comes to football, people have no idea how much money actually means. You're talking about £22 million that Chelsea have paid Brighton to have Graham Potter, plus his wages, plus the backroom staff's wages, whatever they're getting paid as well. And that's the world record fee for a manager, by the way. 20 million for Graham, £2 million for his backroom staff. And I done the maths the other day. If you split that between the 5 or 6 of them that left, I think we brought in Bruno for less than 900k or however much it was. I don't know how much it was. Maybe it was a free transfer. But we've earned more on Bruno than he was when he was a player. Which, it doesn't take away that we've got a legend ripped away from us at all. But when you put it like that and you see how much has been paid for these individuals, I just, we're under the best ownership in the Premier League, possibly even the world. And we just have to trust, and I do trust that money will be put into the right places in the football club for us to progress, for us to move forward from this, because we have to. It's all good being angry. It's all good being, caught up about it. But there's going to be a new guy that comes in. A new guy that we're going to have to get behind, a new guy that we're going to love, I have no doubt. And we have to trust that Tony Bloom picks the correct man to lead this football club where it absolutely deserves to be. Because let's not forget, yes, it's Graham Potter, yes, it's the coaching staff, but we've got some absolutely phenomenal players at Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club. It's the players that have got us there. It absolutely is. They're the ones that go out and give absolutely everything on the pitch. And, let's hope that the new man comes in and sells his vision to these fantastic players, and we push forward, because that's the only way.
Yeah, definitely, Joe. And let's move on then. I mean, sorry, listeners, if you've kind of gone through the whole process of grieving, or whatever you want to call it, and then for the first 20 minutes of this Albion Obsessed podcast episode, you've basically had to listen to me and Joe moan. So yeah, sorry about that. Let's look towards some of the favourites then that are going to be taking over from Graham Potter at Brighton. So the first one is currently last I looked was the bookies' favourite, and that is Kjetil Knutsen, not Knutsen, Knutsen from Bodo Glimt. So he's the bookies' favourite at the moment. Plies his trade over in the Norwegian league. Has done very well. I mean, it's been well established now, I think, based on socials at least. Beat Jose Mourinho's Roma 6-1, has beaten Celtic, plays quite a similar style of football. One of my favourite things I've read about the guy is that he has that same sort of psychological approach to the game as we've seen under Graham Potter, in that he's recruited a former Norwegian Air Force pilot, Bjorn Mansverk, to work on the squad's mentality. And they do meditation and overtraining to get themselves like souped up for the games. So that sounds really exciting. Now, Dan, bless you, you've sat there for 20 minutes and you've basically just listened to me moan. So now I pass the microphone over to you, my friend. What do you make of Knutsen? Do you think he'd be a good fit for Brighton?
I've done a bit of research for basically all the people we've done to going to talk about today. Really, with him, it's sort of, I would say, I have got down, obviously, about him beating Jose Mourinho, Roma 6-1, which is mightily impressive, especially, I don't know how good the football is in Norway, but, it's...
Sorry, Dan, I'm just going to jump in there, because I just want to raise a point. This is a league where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer bossed it as a manager before coming over to England and failing with Cardiff and then underperforming with Manchester United. So it's probably not the highest quality league in the world. Make of that what you will.
There we go. Obviously, I've only got a Solskjaer can do well there, and obviously anybody probably could. But yeah, his win percentage there is not too bad either, 56%. But he has got in his career with his other two clubs, he was at 54% overall. And obviously his formation is 4-3-3, which would be different for what we normally use, because obviously we always have a back three, back four. But obviously having wingers would be probably a massive change, because especially asking for Trossard and March to basically be more forward than being more up and down. But he's an interesting choice, I think, with it all, say, obviously coming from a Norway league, no really thinking about the English game. But obviously beating Jose Mourinho's team 6-1, nicely impressive.
Yeah, very much so. From what I've seen on YouTube, because I went down a bit of a YouTube rabbit hole yesterday, watching highlights, watching interviews with the subtitles on, and he just seems like a very interesting man. Joe, Dan mentioned there about potential change in formation, going from a 3-4-2-1 or whatever we've used before, normally with wing backs, to playing a 4-3-3. If we did set up in a 4-3-3, Joe, just using the current squad of players we have, who would make your team?
So the one thing I will say before is that maybe this is the goods that we had from Graham Potter playing a back four, is that the team won't be strangers to it. But I would go for, based on the players' form now, Sanchez, and then a back four of Veltman, Dunk, Webster, and I'd even maybe say Solly March at left back, because I think it's still a bit too early to make really full judgment on a Stupinian.
How about Colwill at left back? There's a curveball for you.
Colwill, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I'd rather see Solly March played in the advanced role. So let's put Colwill in there just for argument's sake. And then midfield three would have to be Caicedo, McAllister, and Pascal Gross. And then up front would have to be Solly March on the right, Trossard on the left, with the attack headed by Danny Welbeck.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what mine would be as well. And it's worth saying that some of the other managers on the list we're going to chat about today also deploy, or have deployed, should I say, a 4-3-3 formation. I think we've definitely got the players to play that formation. And again, from what I've seen, it's still a very possession-heavy type of attack under Knutsen.
Some of the YouTube clips I saw, again, it was very like interchangeable. that there were a few attacks built up with 3 defenders at the back. So again, it's great that we've had that installed by Graham Potter, that we can switch between the systems, because I'm sure these managers, yeah, they may have their set tactics. But what I love about all of the people we are looking at, especially 2 of them, is that they do interchange their plans, and they have more than one, and it can happen in the game with the players that are on the pitch rather than making the substitution.
Definitely. Dan, what would you say is probably the cons in regarding to Knutsen? You've talked about the pros. What do you think the cons are?
It's definitely not knowledge of English football at all, really. Especially some of the names that we have got on our list, or our top list. Of course, have got the experience, but maybe not as much. Because I know he's done a lot more in the game, sort of, but obviously not in England. I think that's probably the biggest con I could probably think of. Is, you know, the league is very demanding. Very, you know, it's good to have a bit of knowledge of the league, at least. You know, if he's probably played against some Premier League teams in Europe at some stage, more than likely. But obviously, playing in an international sort of tournament based way, but a league based, playing in these sort of teams day in, day out, week in, week out, should I say? Sorry, would be a lot different. And obviously, it'd be interesting to see how he gets on with that if he is the preferred choice. But yeah, just have to wait and see.
Yeah, some good points there, Dan. I think the same sort of con could be used to describe some of the names, some more names on this list, sorry, and that's the lack of experience in English football. So that's Kjetil Knutsen. I'm really sorry if that's burst anyone's bubble who thought his name was Knutsen. I do preface this by saying I'm not pretending that like I know all this stuff. As I said, I went down a rabbit hole. I watched interviews. I listened to people say his name, and it is Knutsen. The English, the English have a funny way of pronouncing Scandinavian names. It's why a lot of English people call Martin Odegaard, and we had Ørstegard, and a lot of people called him Odegaard. It's just the pronunciations. I mean, my son's called Bjorn. When we were doing it, we researched all this stuff about like the accents and everything. So I'm not a know-it-all, I promise. So let's move on then to a name that's definitely sort of kind of come up quite a lot in the last 24 hours, is that of Roberto De Zerbi. Joe, again, very similar sort of style here. Brian Owen today tweeted, apparently he's been watching a lot of Brighton games because he's been hoping that he'll get the call. And it looks like he is definitely in the running. From what I've seen, you know, he also plays a 4-3-3 formation. I think it was a 66 win percentage with Shakhtar. And he's also a free agent as well. Do you think that will play into the mind of Tony Bloom?
It could well do. The thing I love about this guy is what you said, that he's been watching Brighton games and that he's sort of sat there waiting for the call. I love that excitement over, you know, I want to manage this football club. Someone that's sort of putting their name forward through their agent is to say, look at me, I want to be there. He's managed in Syria, he managed Shakhtar, all top leagues that have played European football again. And I like that we're looking at managers that have played in European football, because that clearly shows a statement from Tony Bloom that he wants someone with the experience, because he wants us to be there, obviously. Who wouldn't? So it's exciting times. And again, I just love the passion of, I'm going to watch everything I can. I'm going to learn everything I can about this team, because if I get this job, I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to know. And if I get an interview, I'm going to know the most about this team as well. So yeah, and also the Italian side of things as well. A lot of Italian teams are known for their defensive prowess. We've got a really strong back line, something that it can definitely be improved, but hopefully that can come across as well, and he can teach them a thing or two as well, and give them that sort of Italian aggression and Italian drive. So yeah, it's exciting times, and everyone that's mentioned, especially Knutson and this guy, I would take either or.
Yeah, they're definitely two of the front runners at this moment. Dan, you shared a video on the group chat last night of some De Zerbi football, and it was just ridiculous. They were inviting pressure in and around their own box so they could break. What do you make of De Zerbi's football that you've researched so far?
So yeah, the video was very interesting. So I was sitting there going and trying to figure out like the number, obviously because it details it through. And you say they're inviting a lot of pressure, and I said like you can't really do that in the Premier League really, because as soon as that one of those messes up, that's it. The thing is, they had so many players behind the ball as well. It could be okay, it could be fine, but you can't really do that. But yeah, like we say with his time with Syria, when he was in, is it Sassuolo? I think that's how you pronounce that team's name. They called it overachieving because they just missed out on Conference League. And obviously, they said that about Graham Potter last season for us. So it could be a good sort of fit for us. Obviously, someone who's just narrowly missed out maybe wants to do it. Obviously, for Shakhtar, I would say the only reason he's in a job because he left because of the war. So it's not like he was sacked from Shakhtar Donetsk because he was doing bad. It was just purely because the war started and he was like, "Nah, I don't want to hear that. Thank you very much."
And who can blame him? So I think you could say from definitely those first two candidates there, as you mentioned there, Dan, definitely parts of overachieving. You could make the argument that maybe Knutson with Bodø Glimt should have, he should be expected to challenge for that title. But I highly doubt anyone expected him to beat Jose Mourinho's Roma 6-1. So I definitely think you could call that an overachievement. And talking of overachieving, let's talk about a man who doesn't really need much introduction. And that is one Nathan Jones, who has been linked with the position. Now, Joe, I'm just gonna ask you this straight out. Do you think he's only been linked with the position because of his history with the club, rather than any inside information in regards to whether the club would actually go after him?
Good question. Probably. But also he's done really good at Luton. One of the smallest budgets in the Championship, if I'm not mistaken, and got them to the playoffs last year. Had a really tough run because they had a lot of injuries. I think he can get a squad fired up, and I think he would have got that squad if they were fully fit to go on and maybe even get to Wembley. Because towards the end of last season, he was doing absolute wonders. The question mark around him, obviously, is he left Luton before to manage Stoke, and that was seen as a step up. I believe Stoke had just been relegated from the Premier League. Albeit Stoke were in all sorts of mess, and their players leaving left, right, and centre, and had to basically start again in the Championship. So maybe caught up in a moment that was quite difficult for a club, where supporters weren't, getting behind the manager and just wanted him out because that's the way they thought they would go. Surprisingly, Stoke haven't made any waves since then, or unsurprisingly, if you want to look at it that way. But he went back to Luton, and the fans love him there. What I love about Nathan Jones is that his fire, his passion, his knowledge for football as well. What he wants from a team. He knows exactly what he wants from a team. I go back to one of his interviews when he took over us as interim in between Hoopier and Houghton. And he said that he went home to his girlfriend. He said, "You tell me if my team mirror what I want to do as a man, as a manager, as somebody in football." And that's what the team did that night at Craven Cottage. And we had two fantastic games. I know it's only 2 games, but we had 2 fantastic games under Nathan Jones. He's clearly got something. Is it the right time, though? I'm not sure.
I suppose it depends on your viewpoint, because Nathan Jones has only managed in the English leagues. I mean, there is obviously, as you rightfully raised, Joe, there's question marks about whether he could do the same away from Kenilworth Road. but you know, he's definitely overachieved with that Luton side, 100%. And it's been a few years since he took that Stoke job, I believe. So he's probably progressed as a manager and as a coach in his own right. So I think he'd be quite an interesting appointment. Well, there's one thing about Nathan Jones that we didn't mention about De Zerbi as well, is that they're bilingual. They both speak Spanish, which would be fantastic for the young South American lads that are in our squad. Dan, what do you make of Nathan Jones? Do you think it's the right time for Nathan Jones to make a step up to the Premier League?
It's hard to say, because sort of like with, as you say, being at Luton, he has done very, very well. Then left, as I say, to go to Stoke, and it didn't work, and then he went back. It's very hard, because it's sort of like you want a guy like him, because you say when he came in for us, you see it, the passion that he had was just something we wanted at that point, to sort of just steady the ship, then obviously then have Putin in after to sort of carry it on. I think it might be a bit early for him. I think if he gets there with Luton or maybe another Championship club, and then see how he does from that, possibly might be one in the future, in case this will happen again. It always happens all the time. But obviously, if it happens again, maybe Nathan Jones, revisit Nathan Jones a bit later on, maybe see how he actually does in the Premier League before. Because if we were doing this, say, the time where we weren't expecting to do much, sort of like I say, like the first few years of the Premier League, maybe then it would give a sort of a guy like Nathan Jones a chance to then see how he does. And obviously, doesn't go right. It's a mistake, and maybe it might cost us the league, being in the league or whatever. But obviously, that's still early on. Obviously, still something to rebuild from. But now, as we're sort of more heading towards top of the table, it's harder to roll the dice on someone like Nathan Jones, who's still a young manager. I know we sort of did that with Graham Potter at Swansea, and luckily for us, it worked out. But that was a transition. We're not trying to transition to something else. We're trying to carry on to what we're doing. So we want someone sort of to carry on, not to sort of roll the dice again. So, in my opinion, I think it might be slightly too early for Nathan to come join us as manager.
Some really good points there, Dan. Really good points. Yeah, well said, mate. Well said. If it's too early for Nathan Jones, then the next man on the list is going to be way too early for him, and that is Russell Martin at Swansea. Now, Russell Martin is I think he's from Brighton. I know he's a Sussex lad, but yeah, so local lad Russell Martin, currently coaching at Swansea. You want to talk about like a pretty much seamless transition. I think he's got to be up there in terms of, at least that's a major pro for him. Very tactically flexible, similar to Potter. Very possession based. I think I read a stat that when he was manager at MK Dons, that only Barcelona and Manchester City had more average possession than MK Dons under Russell Martin, and that is just insane for MK Dons of League One to have that much possession. And I looked at some more MK Dons stats as well from his tenure there, and it's their chance creation was off the charts as well. They were absolutely rinsing it in League One, which is obviously why he got the chance to do it at Swansea. But Joe, he's never really set the world alight at Swansea, but you could also say the same about one Graham Potter.
Who? I don't know who you're talking about.
Potter.
Oh, okay. Swansea must hate us, by the way. They must absolutely hate us. Imagine we get Russell Martin 6 games into the season, taking away, obviously, a project there, because, as you mentioned, tactically fluid. Their owners clearly want an identity and want a way to play football. Again, maybe too soon for him. But it remains to be seen. I really don't know much on what he's done at MK Dons or at Swansea. I don't know where Swansea finished last season. I don't know where they are now. And so, to be honest, it would be unfair for me to really comment about what he could do for us.
From what I can remember, it took Swansea quite a while to get going under Russell Martin last season. Being it was the fact it was Russell Martin being a local lad, I kept my eyes on sort of like the Swansea score, see how they were doing, and I do believe they were winless for quite a while. But he did get them, to finish, I think, mid-table, which is where Potter got Swansea to finish. Really, Dan, what do you make of Russell Martin at Swansea? Do you think he's got the know-how, got the skills to take that step up, or similar to your points regarding Nathan Jones, do you think it's just too early for him at the moment?
Yeah, I think again maybe too early. I think this, as I say, NK Dons is probably that's percentage stat is quite impressive, to be honest. Having a lot more possession, average possession, just being up there with Barcelona and Man City, that's incredible. And I was how he was doing at Swansea. I believe that the striker there was in the shout for top scorer. Obviously, well, it wasn't in the contention. But obviously, he was up there. But yeah, yes, I think Swansea must hate us.
Is that the guy Pirot? I believe his name is.
Yeah,
he looks decent. To be honest, if we got Russell Martin, and January came around, I'd actually take him. He actually looked really good.
Push the wrong button then. Sorry. Yeah. He does. He had a good start of the season as well. I think he has as well. And but yeah, I think it's too early for him. Same as Nathan. Needs a bit more experience. Maybe if he gets Swansea up this year or next year, try him out then, see how he gets on then, and then decide from that. But yeah, I think if he did go for someone like him, I think it could be all right for him. But say he's from the area, he knows Brighton, it's that sort of thing. But I think maybe tactically and maybe for say roll the dice, it may be a bit early.
Yeah, I think if it was a couple of seasons ago, it would have probably been more likely. But now, as you said previously, Dan, we're a team that are trying to establish ourselves as a regular top 10 finisher. But having said that, it is the sort of thing I can see Brighton doing, completely left field. And we've brought in Russell Martin, and Russell Martin's blue and white army does have a nice ring to it. But we move on, and I've kept this name till last of the list of people we're going to chat about today. It is worth mentioning, there are a lot more names on the list. I've tried to keep it in terms of like the ones that the bookies are talking about quite a lot, and I know the odds are changing forever, and it is worth mentioning the odds change based on the betting patterns and whatnot. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the bookies are in the know. It just means that that's who people are betting on. This is Steve Cooper from Nottingham Forest. And the reason I've put him last is because I think this is the least likely. He's just been absolutely backed to the hilt in the transfer window, with Forest buying in like 20-something players, or, really a lot of players either way. I can't see him moving on, and I can't see Forest allowing us even the right to talk to him. They won't have just spent all that money just for us to come along and say, well, actually, we want him at our club. It's just not going to happen, is it? I think it is worth mentioning just really briefly that he did do a good job at Swansea. He did you could arguably say did a better job than Graham Potter did, and obviously did a good job at Nottingham Forest, getting them into the playoffs, and then going up that way, which is fantastic. But I just don't see it. Joe, what are your thoughts on Cooper?
It's a non-starter for me. I really don't see it happening. I don't see the Forest owners giving us any time of day whatsoever. I don't even see Cooper giving us the time of day. I know there's a difference between fourth and wherever Nottingham Forest are, but they clearly want to back him. They clearly got confidence in him that they can stay in the Premier League. And yeah, again, it's a non-starter. And for me, anyway, the only person I would want on this list, and it comes down to morals, and I know morals go out the window in football, especially with how brutal it is. The only one that sits right with me is De Zerbi, because he's not at a club. And I would hate for us to do exactly what Chelsea have done to us, to another club, especially from where we've come from not that long ago in the Championship, I would hate for us to take that apart. But I know that morals don't come into football. And I know that Tony Bloom is only going to be focused on the right man, no matter what the cost may be. So yeah, for me, it has to be De Zerbi.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really well put and thoughtful thing to do to say, Joe, because we as Brighton fans are hurting because of what's just happened to us. And the thought of doing that to another club, it doesn't sit well with me. I'll talk to you about my pick in a minute, but just before I do mine, Dan, Cooper, non-starter?
I'm going to delve into rumours here because I've seen rumours that apparently he'd be very interested in be speaking to for the job. Apparently, this is obviously it's somebody probably knows him, like his barber or something. Probably said that, but yeah, Steve Cooper, really, he's done fairly well with what he's done. Say he's brushed with, like I say, Swansea, obviously where we got Graham Potter. Obviously he was his replacement. Obviously then he was, I believe he was Chris Hughton's replacement at Forest. If I'm wrong, I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, but, it was worth mentioning just here really quickly that at the time, Forest under Hughton were, they don't know if they were at the bottom or they were definitely in and around the bottom three. So the job he did there, again, excellent. Sorry, Dan, continue.
No, that's a good point because I say when Chris Hughton was sacked, because I think he was sacked after a few games because it wasn't working. They brought him in. They've done fairly well, as you said, Tom. I think the only way, obviously, there's another thing I'm going to put in as well. He did win a World Cup with the England under-17s, which is amazing as well. It's such a good achievement to put on to have on your CV as well. I don't know, because sort of like you say, if Forest lost Cooper, I think that it would be very bad for them, especially with the squad trying to gel, because this off period they've had, they need that squad to gel because they've got so many new players. If you take Cooper out, obviously we take Cooper away, that squad of players would literally be like, oh, what do I do now? We're going to endanger a team, possibly. But obviously, as I say, morals and football doesn't matter. If we want the man, we'll have the man. I think for me, I don't know. It's one of those ones where I saw that Postecoglou was meant to be one of the favourites, and I was like, for me, it'd be like another Gerrard. Like, say, he does so well with Celtic in Scotland, comes down to the Premier League, and then does terrible, mediocre, and whatever. And it's one of those ones. Sort of, I could probably see it if we could get him because his pedigree, his CV is so good, especially with that England under-17s World Cup win as well. Yeah, it's one of those ones where I'm in the middle of that one, but we'll have to just wait and see.
What is amazing though? Sorry, Tom. No, you go. Cool.
I was just going to say, you mentioned there about Cooper in the transfer window. There's no way he'd get that sort of backing here. There's no way we would spend that much and bring that many players in. And that I don't know. I'm not a Forest fan, and I'm also not in the know. But if Steve Cooper has said we need all these players, Tony Bloom would just laugh at him. He'd say no. So I worry that maybe he would be not too demanding, but there'd be a sense of like a complete squad overhaul, which Tony Bloom won't fly for. And just really quickly on Big Ange from Celtic, you rightfully point out, Dan, that Big Ange, Scottish League is it is not a good barometer of quality. I vaguely follow Scottish football because I have family in Edinburgh and they support Hibernian, but it's not a good barometer of quality at all. And I believe that there were issues with him going to Scotland because he didn't have the right qualification badges, and that's in the SPL, which fans of the Premier League, rightly or wrongly, call a farmers' league because it's basically just Celtic or Rangers doing whatever they want. Yes, they play in European football, and yes, sometimes they get good results, but there's a big difference between playing one-off cup games and doing it week in, week out. I have my doubts. And as you rightfully point out, you know, look at Gerrard, you know, really good in Scotland, not doing so well in England. Joe, just say your piece. Before, sorry about interrupting you.
No, you're fine, mate. I just really want to quickly remind people of a Michael McIntyre joke that he done in his Comedy Roadshow. Rangers 461 points, Celtic 460 points, Hearts 4. Yeah, that explains the Scottish League fantastically well. Moving on from that, what I love is that the reports say that Brighton have received a very high number of applicants for this post. Fantastic for our football club. Wonderful that people want to be the ones to carry this fantastic journey on. Talks hopefully will be starting this week with whoever we want to bring in, the high number of candidates, the high quality number of candidates as well that we've already mentioned, some that we haven't mentioned as well. So yeah, as I said before, we just had to put full faith in Tony Bloom, Paul Barber, the rest of the guys behind the scenes that we bring in the correct man and carry this fantastic season on. Because let's not forget, we're currently sat fourth in the Premier League. There probably isn't going to be another game for another couple of weeks. Rumors have it. So we're going to still be sat there when it comes to us playing our next game after the international break. And as I say, let's carry this momentum on. The players that we have, the fans that we have, the journey that we're on is so special. It would just be such a shame to see this capitulate. And let's hope that Adam Lallana and Andrew Cross are doing their absolute best to keep our players' spirits high and to make them believe that they are worthy of being where they are.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just going to come in now because you've just made a really good point, and I'm going to tell you my pick. And the reason I've gone for this person is because of the potential psychological knock-on effect that Graham Potter's exit will have had on the players, and that's Knutsen. I think there's huge similarities between the way that Potter's man management approach and Knutsen's approach, from what I've read. They're very similar. So I think based on the timing of Potter's departure, based on the fact that the players are probably going to need a bit of a pick-me-up, I think Knutsen's the man for me to come in and, you know, to do it, basically. Again, from his tactics, I liked what I've seen. But to be perfectly honest, all the names we've chatted about today, I think De Zerbi and Knutsen are probably like the top two runners. And I would genuinely be happy with either of them. I do really like what you had to say there, Joe, about De Zerbi. And then we wouldn't have to impact on another team, because obviously that would be a really shitty thing to do. But, you know, it's the world of modern football, unfortunately. Dan, me and Joe have had our say. Do you have a particular person or a particular favourite that you'd like to come in and take the job?
I think De Zerbi is quite an interesting pick, I think, especially if he actually is watching our games, to actually say, you know, I'm interested, I'm watching your games, I'm showing you that I want the job. Please, you know, I want to come in to help the job out and finish it off and hopefully do better than the previous. I think, as more as I'm thinking about it, obviously I think Knutsen and De Zerbi probably are the front runners. Either one I'd probably be happy with. Steve Cooper maybe an outsider. I think I'm not quite sure if that's somebody, as you say, if that was his idea, all the transfers, if it was just a necessity. Because if he came into our club and looked at him and gone, actually, I've got all the players I need, I don't need to do that, that'd be fine. But obviously if he came in and she went, I need all these, then no. Then but with the, I think De Zerbi, I think for me, I think it's probably a better option, maybe, because he has done a quite good job in Serie A, and obviously a bigger league than Knutsen has done. So that's probably the only way I'd go.
Is anyone else like really excited? Like we've had our conversations, we've had our anger, we've had our, you know, the 5 stages of heartbreak that everyone's talking about. But I'm actually, like, after the conversations we've had, I'm so excited for the new era of Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club. And I cannot wait to see our new man sat there at the press conference table telling us exactly why he wanted this job, exactly why he believes that he's the man to take this football club forward. How bloody exciting, can I just say? And like the last couple of days, I've been looking at all my Brighton shirts and I've been sort of, you know, sat in my sorrow. And every time I look at something, it reminds me of him. And it makes me really upset. But now I wear this shirt with pride. I look at the Brighton badges with pride, just knowing that us fans, we're always going to be here, no matter what. And how exciting it is for this new guy to come in and to learn the fantastic culture of this football club. And the fans on Twitter have been absolutely amazing. Everyone's had a crap week. I've made it clear that I had an awful week. And the support I got from so many people is so bloody heartwarming. And I just want to shout out a guy on Twitter, Pursuit of Truth, I believe his name is, Brightonian. He's got the little Ecuador flag. He says he listens to this podcast week in, week out. And that means the absolute world to us, for you to listen to us rant on about nonsense that sometimes I don't even know what I'm talking about, but somehow I'm here and I'm talking about it. Yeah, it really, really does mean a lot to us. So yeah, thank you.
It certainly does. And we genuinely cannot wait for the next Brighton manager to be revealed. We've told you the 5 names that are on the list. Of course, there are others, but we just didn't think they were likely enough to make the list to chat about today, which is going to make us look really, really silly when Sean Dyche is in the chair for the interview, Joe. So welcome, Sean. Lump it up to Welbs, yeah? And we'll see we'll see how we go. But in all seriousness, guys, thank you for joining us on this transfer. Oh my God, it is like a transfer special where we talk about the replacement of one Graham Potter. If you'd like to leave us a comment below and tell us who you would like to be the next manager. Has anyone on this list caught your eye, or are there other names that you think that are worth considering? Please let us know down below. So wherever you may be, whenever you may be, have a wonderful evening, day, morning, afternoon, whatever. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe for more content if you haven't done so already. Take care of yourselves, guys. It's been an awful week. We'll see you next time, though. Take care.